My family treated me like trash for 14 years while spoiling my adopted sister. But when Melissa humiliated me at my birthday in front of everyone, a mysterious woman stood up, revealed she was her biological mother, and handed me a $500K check that changed everything. I'm 19 years old. I study psychology at university. And what happened on my birthday, like 3 months ago, basically destroyed whatever relationship was left with my family. But honestly, I don't even care anymore, because what they did to me for years was worse than anything I could have done to them. I guess I should start from the beginning, when my parents adopted Melissa and everything went to hell. But the truth is, I don't even remember what my life was like before she arrived because I was like 5 years old, and the only thing I know is that from that moment on, I stopped existing for them. Melissa came to our house when I was 5 and she was 4, and from day one she was the princess of the family. You know, the perfect girl who could do no wrong, while I became the invisible daughter who only served to be her shadow. My parents never really explained why they adopted her. They just said vague things like she was the daughter of a relative who couldn't take care of her. But I didn't really care much back then because I was little, and I thought that's just how things were, that older siblings simply got less attention. What I didn't know was that I was going to spend the rest of my childhood and adolescence being treated like a second-class citizen in my own house, while Melissa got absolutely everything she asked for. And when I say everything, I mean everything. From expensive toys to elaborate parties for every birthday, while I got like at most a dinner at Applebee's, if I was lucky. Things got worse when we hit our teens because Melissa became unbearable, like the stereotypical spoiled girl you see in movies but multiplied by 1,000, and my parents just let her do whatever she wanted because apparently confronting her or setting boundaries was impossible. I tried to keep my head down and focus on school because I thought that if I got good grades and behaved well, eventually my parents would see me. You know? But it didn't matter how many academic awards I won or how many times I appeared on the honor roll. They only had eyes for Melissa and her stupid achievements that weren't even real achievements but things they bought for her. Melissa won an award in a local beauty pageant. Celebration dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. I graduated with honors and got a full scholarship to university. They didn't even go to my graduation because it coincided with one of Melissa's dance recitals that wasn't even important, just a practice performance or something like that. By the time my 19th birthday came around, I was basically emotionally disconnected from my family. I lived at university during the semester and only went home when absolutely necessary. And honestly, I was considering not going for my birthday, but my mom insisted so much that I finally gave in, thinking that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different, and they would finally treat me like a human being. How wrong I was, seriously. I should have seen it coming because my mom mentioned like 3 times that Melissa had prepared something special for my party, which was already a huge red flag because Melissa never did anything special for anyone unless it was to draw attention to herself. I arrived at the house around 6 in the evening, and there were already people there, like neighbors and some relatives. And my first reaction was confusion because I had never had a party this big. Normally it was just the 4 of us, and maybe my grandmother, if she remembered. My mom came running out to greet me with that fake smile she puts on when she's pretending enthusiasm and said, "Melissa organized all this for you. Isn't it wonderful?" And I just nodded because I already knew this wasn't going to end well. But I had no idea how bad things were going to get. During the first hour, everything was relatively normal. I mean, awkward as always, because basically everyone ignored that it was my party and talked to Melissa as if she were the birthday girl. But I was already used to that and just tried to keep a smile and eat the cake that wasn't even my favorite flavor but Melissa's. Chocolate with raspberry instead of plain vanilla, which was the only thing I had asked for. Then came the speech moment. You know? When normally the birthday girl gets nice words from her family, and my mom handed the microphone to Melissa, saying she had prepared something very special, and I swear something in my stomach told me I should run out of there. But I stayed because I thought I was being paranoid. Melissa took the microphone with that smile she has when she's about to do something horrible, cleared her throat dramatically as if she were about to give a speech at the Oscars or something, and started by saying, "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my older sister's birthday, who is finally turning 19 and still hasn't accomplished absolutely anything in her life." The room went completely silent, and I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, but she continued, "You know, it's hard having a sister who is so mediocre at everything she does, who is so unattractive she's never had a boyfriend, who is so boring she has no real friends, and who is basically a burden to our parents who have to pay for her university because she couldn't even get a decent scholarship." Literally every word was a lie. I had a full scholarship and several friends at university. But that didn't matter because Melissa was in total destruction mode and my parents were just standing there saying nothing, like they weren't even trying to stop her, and that hurt more than anything she could say. Melissa kept talking, saying horrible things about my appearance, my personality, my supposed failures, and the audience was uncomfortable, but nobody stopped her. Absolutely nobody. Until she finally finished her speech with, "So let's raise our glasses to my sister, the biggest disappointment of this family." And everyone fell silent, because it was obvious she had crossed a line, but apparently nobody had the guts to say anything to her. I was about to leave, literally had my car keys in hand, and was ready to disappear and never come back, when a woman I didn't recognize stood up from one of the tables in the back and started walking toward us. She was tall, wore an expensive business suit, was like 45 years old maybe, and there was something about the way she moved that screamed authority and money. And I had no idea who she was, but my mom suddenly went pale when she saw her approaching, like literally all the blood drained from her face. The woman took the microphone from Melissa's hands without even asking, turned to the audience and said in a super calm but firm voice, "Hello everyone. My name is Rebecca and I'm Melissa's aunt," although she doesn't know it because her adoptive parents never told her about me. The room exploded in murmurs and Melissa looked confused but still had that arrogant expression on her face, like she couldn't process that someone was stealing her moment of attention. Rebecca continued, "I'm a corporate executive. I've worked in the tech industry for 20 years, and I make more money than most people in this room will see in their entire lives. And 18 years ago, I made the hardest decision of my existence, which was to give my daughter to my younger sister to raise, because I was focused on my career and didn't have time to be a mother." My mom tried to interrupt her, but Rebecca completely ignored her and kept talking. "I gave my sister and her husband a perfectly healthy baby girl, hoping they would give her a good life. I gave them money for her education, for her upbringing, and the only thing I asked was that they treat her with love and that they also treat their other daughter well, my biological niece. But what I just witnessed shows me that they failed miserably at that second part. The silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and I was still standing there, not fully understanding what was happening but feeling that something huge was about to change. Rebecca took something out of her purse, a white envelope, and said, "Every year for Melissa's birthday I've sent money to this family with the condition that it be used for both girls equally. But clearly that money never went where it should have, so this year I decided to come personally to make sure things were done right." She turned to me and handed me the envelope saying, "This is for you, happy birthday." And when I opened it and saw the check, I almost fainted because it was a blank check from a bank account with her name. I mean, I could literally write in any amount I wanted and she would pay it. Melissa went crazy, like completely hysterical, started screaming that the money was hers, that she was Rebecca's biological niece, that I didn't deserve anything, and tried to grab the check from my hands. But Rebecca stopped her by grabbing her arm with a strength you wouldn't expect from someone in a business suit. Rebecca looked her directly in the eyes and said, "You are my biological daughter, yes. But after what I just saw, you behave like a spoiled and cruel child who doesn't deserve a cent of my money. And if your adoptive parents turned you into this, then they also failed as parents." My parents finally reacted and tried to defend Melissa, saying that Rebecca didn't understand the situation, that I had always been problematic and difficult, which was completely false, that Melissa was just joking with her speech joking. Seriously, how do you joke about calling someone a total disappointment? But Rebecca ignored them and turned to me saying, "If you need a place to stay, my house is open to you." The party basically ended after that. People started leaving quickly because the discomfort was unbearable, and I stood there with the check in my hands, while Melissa cried dramatically in my mom's arms, and my dad looked at me with a mixture of anger and something else I couldn't identify? Fear, maybe? My parents forced Melissa to apologize to me, but it was the most fake and insincere apology I've ever heard in my life. Like she wasn't even looking me in the eyes and was basically growling the words through her teeth. And when she finished, my mom immediately said, "Now give the check to your sister and we can forget all this." I stared at her like she had grown 3 heads, because did she seriously think that after everything that had happened, I was just going to hand over the check? I told her no, that this was my birthday gift and I was keeping it, and my dad exploded saying I was being selfish, that Melissa needed that money more than I did, because she didn't have a scholarship for university, because she never studied to get one. But whatever. And that as the older sister, I should be more understanding and generous. The hypocrisy was so obvious. I almost laughed in his face. 18 years treating me like garbage, but now that I had something Melissa wanted, suddenly they remembered. I existed, and I should be the responsible older sister. I told them I was leaving and went to my room to pack my things. I didn't have much at the house because most of my belongings were at university, and while I was putting clothes in a suitcase, my parents came in and started with the emotional blackmail, saying I was breaking up the family, that Melissa was devastated, that Rebecca was just causing problems and didn't understand the family dynamics. My mom even cried, like real tears, saying they had always loved me equally and that I was exaggerating things, and that did make me laugh because it was so obviously false. I couldn't even take it seriously. I told them I was going to stay with Rebecca if her offer still stood, and my dad said that if I left not to ever come back, that I was dead to them. But honestly, at that point, I didn't care anymore because I had spent years feeling dead to them anyway. I left the house with my suitcase. Rebecca was waiting for me outside in her car, a latest model Mercedes, by the way. And as we drove away, I saw Melissa in her bedroom window, looking at me with so much hatred I could practically feel it piercing through the glass. Rebecca took me to her house, which was more mansion than house, like 3 floors with a pool and everything, and set me up in a guest room that was bigger than my dorm room at university. That night we talked for hours and she told me the whole story, how she got pregnant at 27 from a guy who disappeared when he found out, how she made the decision to give Melissa to my mom, because at that time her career was taking off and she didn't see herself as a mother, how she had been sending money all these years thinking they were raising us both well, and how she finally decided to come to my birthday after my mom casually mentioned in a phone call that Melissa had organized something special and Rebecca had a bad feeling. I stayed with Rebecca for the rest of my birthday break, and during that time my parents bombarded me with text messages, calls, emails, basically any method of communication you can think of, demanding that I come back home and return the check. Melissa also wrote to me, alternating between fake apologies and threats about how she was going to ruin my life. And honestly, all the harassment was affecting me mentally because no matter how much you try to emotionally disconnect from your family, it still hurts when they treat you like that, you know? Rebecca told me I could block them, but I still had this stupid hope that maybe they would realize how badly they had treated me and really apologize. But clearly, I was living in a fantasy world. After like a week of constant harassment, I decided to do something probably immature, but that at the time made me feel better. I sent them a message saying I would consider giving the check to Melissa if they met 2 conditions. First, they had to post a public apology on their social media, admitting how they had treated me for years, and second, they had to publicly disown Melissa and say that I was their only real daughter. Obviously, I knew they would never do it. Like it was completely impossible for them to accept those conditions. But I wanted to see them suffer a little and give them a taste of how it felt to be manipulated and used, which was exactly what they had done to me my entire life. The interesting thing is they actually considered it, or at least pretended to consider it, because over the next few days I got messages from my mom asking if it was negotiable, if we could change the conditions, if the apologies really had to be that public, and I just kept saying no, that those were my conditions, and they could take them or leave them. Melissa obviously found out about my demands and wrote me the most horrible messages I've ever received in my life, calling me everything, saying she hated me, that she wished I had never been born, that she was going to make me regret crossing her. And honestly, it was liberating in a way because it confirmed that she had never seen me as her sister, but as competition or as an obstacle to getting what she wanted. My parents and Melissa spent days fighting among themselves about what to do. Rebecca told me that my mom called her crying, saying I was destroying the family and asking Rebecca to convince me to return the check. But Rebecca just told her that maybe she should reflect on why her biological daughter preferred to live with a stranger than with her own family. The truth is that at that point I had already made a decision. I was never going to give them the check no matter what they did because the whole thing with the conditions was just to mess with their heads, you know? So they would feel a little bit of the frustration and desperation I had felt for years when I begged for their attention and love, and got nothing. Was it vengeful? Yes. Was it immature? Probably. Did it make me feel good? Absolutely. After, like 2 weeks of this mind game, I sent them a final message telling them the truth, that I had never intended to give them the check, that it had all been to make them suffer a little, and that from now on I didn't want to hear from them ever again. My dad responded with paragraphs of text insulting me, calling me manipulative and cruel, saying I had turned out just as horrible as my mom, which made no sense, but whatever. And Melissa basically had a mental breakdown according to what Rebecca told me, who still talked to my mom occasionally. Things got weird after that because I started getting calls from unknown numbers at all hours, messages from fake social media accounts, and basically obsessive level digital harassment that obviously came from my family, although I couldn't prove it. I blocked everything I could, but they kept finding ways to contact me. And at one point, I considered changing my phone number, but Rebecca told me that would be letting them win in a way that I hadn't done anything wrong and shouldn't have to hide. The situation escalated when Melissa somehow found out I was living at Rebecca's house, probably my mom told her, and one day she showed up at the door demanding to talk to me. Rebecca didn't let her in, but Melissa started screaming at the entrance, saying I had stolen what was hers, that the check should be for her because Rebecca was her biological mother, that I was a thief and a liar, and basically made such a big scene that the neighbors came out to see what was happening. Rebecca had to threaten to call the police for her to finally leave. And I was watching everything from a second-floor window, feeling a mixture of sadness and satisfaction because it was clear that Melissa was completely losing control for not getting what she wanted for the first time in her life. A few days later, my parents showed up at Rebecca's house, all three of them together, and demanded that I come out to talk to them. Rebecca told them I wasn't there, and to leave, but they refused. They started yelling horrible things about me, about Rebecca, about the whole situation, and eventually Rebecca had to call the police because they wouldn't leave and were disturbing the peace of the neighborhood. When the police arrived, my parents tried to play the victims, saying I was their daughter and that Rebecca was holding me against my will, which was ridiculous because I was 19 years old and could make my own decisions. But the officers told them to leave or face charges for disturbing the peace, and they finally left, but not before my mom yelled at me that I was a horrible daughter and that I would regret all this. I went back to university like a week after all that drama. Rebecca helped me move and basically told me that her house would always be open to me if I needed it, and that she considered all the money from the check as mine to use on whatever I wanted, without having to ask her permission. I deposited the check, writing a reasonable amount, like enough to pay for the rest of my university and have a good financial cushion, but not something crazy like $1 million because I didn't want to abuse her generosity. And when Rebecca saw the amount, she told me I had put in too little, and not to worry about her money, because she had more than enough. My parents tried to contact me a couple more times after that, but eventually gave up when they saw I wasn't going to respond. Or maybe they just got tired of trying. I don't know, and honestly, I don't care anymore. Melissa apparently had to get a part-time job to pay for her university because my parents couldn't afford to pay it all without the money Rebecca used to send. And part of me feels bad about that, but a bigger part thinks it's exactly what she deserves for being a horrible person for years. Now I'm in my second year of university. My grades are good. I have real friends who really care about me. And I talk to Rebecca like twice a week. Sometimes just to tell her about my day and other times to ask her for advice about life. She told me recently that she regrets giving Melissa up for adoption because if she had raised her, she might not have become the person she is now. And I don't know what to say to that because it's complicated, you know? But I told her that at least from that whole horrible situation, something good came out, which is that now I have someone in my life who really sees me and values me. Do I miss my family? Sometimes, I'm not going to lie. There are moments when I see other people with their families and I feel a hole in my chest. But then I remember everything they did to me, and that feeling disappears quickly. Last week, my mom sent me a message from a new number saying that Melissa had apologized to them for her behavior and that everyone wanted to start over, that if we could forget everything and be a family again. I didn't even respond, just blocked the number and went on with my day, because after everything that it happened, I finally understood that some things can't be fixed and that it's okay to let go of people who hurt you, even if they're your family. I guess that's it. There really isn't a happy movie type ending here. Just a girl who decided she deserved something better and was lucky enough to find someone who agreed with that.